sounds good. Good afternoon. Thank you for attending our Finance Committee here tonight. It's Tuesday, March 27th. I am Alderman Moore. I'll be chairing this meeting along with Alderman Stoyer, Council President Duane, and Alderman Slottick. So we'll start off the meeting here with our approval for the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have motion and a second for approval. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Item number 3, approval of the minutes from March 13th, 2018 Finance Committee meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second for approval on the minutes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. We got a report by the purchasing manager. Item A is consideration of possible action on a request for approval to award a contract to remodel the fire shop office to Green Bay area builders for $15,588.
We issued an RFP for this work. We received 5 quotes, and we're recommending award to the low bidder.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have motion and a second for approval. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you. Item 5, consideration with possible action on a request by the Common Council and City Departments to review and approve the 2018 bonding request. So what we'll do here, if the mayor is here, he was here just a moment ago. Perfect. Mayor, I know that you've got another commitment tonight. Would you want to address the committee first, and then I guess if you have some kind of a statement or presentation on it, and then we'll go to our bond agent here.
All right.
And we'll move on.
All right, well, thank you. This is an important time in the city, right? Our long-term bonding. And we spend as much time on this as we do on the city budget, you know, just months and months of work that go into this. And I had sent you a letter on March 23rd, really laying out what I think is best for the city when it comes to this long-term borrowing. And as I mentioned in there, and I know you know this, but I just think it's important to remind you that, you know, we have 2 types of debt. We have debt that is general levy debt, paid for by the taxpayers. And then we have debt that's paid for by other sources. So when we borrowed money for the KI Convention Center, sure, the city took on debt, but that is being retired through the room tax revenue. We have other items that are paid for either through Bay Beach revenues. And I think it's important that that GO debt, that general obligation debt, stays manageable. And it was over $100 million when I was first elected in 2003, and now it's down to 84, and I still think we have a ways to go. Now we have debt paid by other sources that is higher, but we've taken on more projects. We've gotten much more aggressive with tax increment financing, and so I think you'll see a number of total debt, and I think that's important to be aware of it. But I think you need to know that's like adding on to your house. You got renters paying that, or are you paying for it? And I just think it's important that you and the public are aware of that. The 2 things that I really wanted to point out to you on my bonding proposal. One is the cost that's going into infrastructure, right? Webster Avenue, we've been talking about that forever. You see $6 million just of concrete that is in that budget. And other projects that we'll be doing, other equipment. We have some security. When you go to the farmer's market, when you go to the events downtown, you know, both chiefs would like to see these barriers purchased, and that is not inexpensive, but something that's going to stand the test of time, and we think that's worth bonding for, and that's a good item. There's another project in here, though, that I really want you to understand, and then I'll sit down and have you meet with the department heads, but Bay Beach, you know, we've talked about Bay Beach a lot, and really turned the corner on that, I think, with the Zip and Pippin, and that beach is doing very well, and we have a very active Friends group. The Friends group, as you know, is going to be donating a big wheel to us, which is under construction. There's a plan to do a lot more at that beach, a parking lot, a beach, a boardwalk, a pier, and I think there's some value in doing that collectively, doing that all at once instead of piecemealing it over 4 or 5 or 6 years. And The issue we had was that the Friends kind of controlled, and you brought this up, Alderman Slavic, the revenues for Bay Beach. And in meeting with them a number of times, and last week came up with an agreement where we will use Bay Beach revenues to fund the overall Bay Beach project. And you're going to see just a different beach there if you approve this bonding. So we're still borrowing $5 million. It's just the revenue from that is coming from Bay Beach. And they've amended their agreement with us, and that's going to go to Parks Committee tomorrow night for the amendment. Dan will speak to that. We're comfortable with it, and it's $150,000 the first 5 years, and then $500,000 thereafter. Still committed to $1 million of grants, still committed to $1 million of fundraising, but you're going to have a project that's just going to be, trying to find the right term for it, we're all in, and we're going to work on that project and really elevate that to be, just the bookend to Titletown. So we're excited about that project. That is in the budget, but again, was moved down to the revenue source. And just lastly, I want to talk on the green space downtown, the pocket park. We talked about that. That's $100,000. It's $60,000 of money from the city that is paid for through the tax increment financing out of District 5. So again, no levy dollars in that. We'll go match the $40,000 as we mentioned last week when we were here. And we could get some green space on that pocket park right across the street from the Hotel Northland. So those are projects I support. I think what we have before you is a pretty good bonding request for the next 15, 20 years. And as I told you, this is my last bonding request to the city council, and it'd be pretty easy just to say, go ahead, bond $25 million. But I always said, I'm going to turn this city over to like it's going to be my kid. So I want to be cautious with the bonding, and that's why you have before you what I think is best for the city and best for the next administration and long-term for the taxpayers.
Your Honor, can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Regarding Colburn, I completely understand what's been pulled out of here. But before the meeting, Alderman Slotnick and I were kind of questioning adding the $100,000 into general levy bonding, knowing that the existing pool has a lifespan of 3 to 5 years, which means 15 years, not knowing what the future of Colburn is going to be. I mean, we would have 15 years that we're still paying back this bond after the life of the pool is completely gone. Is there another source to funnel another $100,000 into Colburn other than bonding that if we were to pull that out tonight? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to bond $100,000 for a 3 to 5 years.
Something that may last 5 years. You're right. We do have a philosophy where we're never going to bond more than 50% of our bonding capacity,
Right.
And that we bond for items that will outlast the payments of the bond. Yes, there is, and that would be our operating budget, but I'm not going to be doing that until next spring. We could take a 3-year bond, and through the operating budget, you could have me work that into, we have a $55 million operating budget that we levy the taxpayers for. And to find $100,000 to pay that off, or Diana could find a short-term loan, but and we did change it on there to 4 or 5 years. And you're right, that's a good point, and we would like to retire that debt before the pool is, so that the pool outlasts the bond, yes.
Right.
And we could do that.
Okay, and then the other question was just regarding the public safety building and design for police and fire. I'm wondering, and with both chiefs here, if there's a possibility that cost, rather than being bonded and spread out over 20 years, could be worked out of their budgets, divided equally.
Well, I'll just say that.
I like the chuckles, I get right away, but $20,000 out of each or a 20-year bond on it.
It's not uncommon for us to put design plans, when you look at project costs, it is the bricks and mortar, you're right, but the architectural drawings, the design plans, and you're right, the space needs analysis was done out of the police budget. We now want to get some design plans, where's the Sally Port, where's the training room, what's this gonna look like, and then lay that on 2 or 3 pieces of property, so, by the end of the year, we could maybe do some offers to purchase on property and then get some financing going in 19. You really have to talk to the chiefs about that. I look at this as part of the project cost, Mr. Alderman, and I'm comfortable with it being in there.
Okay. Are there any questions from the committee?
All right, thank you. You got a big night in front of you.
Yes.
UWGB has a.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come in and
Yeah.
address us, so thank you for that.
Right.
Yeah, we
So
spent
you
some,
placed it.
yeah, seen you more than I have in years lately.
Okay, so at this point then, I would just ask our bond, Council Brad from Baird.
I mean, it's like, Baird is our financial advisor, Foley is our bond counsel. But,
Oh, okay, okay.
Brad is from Baird.
Perfect.
Thank you, man.
Sure, you're welcome.
So Brad Vigut with Baird, financial advisor to the city. There's a packet that was just handed out. This takes the proposed bonding and puts it into a financing plan so you can evaluate the impact on your on the taxpayers and the impact of the budget moving forward from this program. I won't spend much time on this first page. You have greater detail of the specific projects, but I would point out that this is broken into two components. There's a general obligation note issue, which simply means it's repaid within 10 years, and then there's a bond issue, repaid in 20 years. The reason for the splitting into two is that there's certain projects that are just not eligible for bonding, or that have a lifespan that's less than 20 years. So those projects are funded through the note issuance. The notes do have a 10-year repayment, the bond's 20-year. The estimated interest rate is just under 3% on the notes, it's 2.82, and based on today's market, about 3.38% interest rate is projected for the bond issue. Now, these are just estimates at this point. If the committee decides to forward a recommendation to the council, council could consider the initial borrowing resolution at its April 2nd meeting, and from there, Baird city staff would take the steps needed to bring the issuance to market. So that includes securing the Moody's rating, putting an official statement in place, marketing the notes and the bonds. I would be back at your April 17th meeting, where the council would consider the award resolution, and that finalizes the terms and the rates. And it's at that point that the interest is locked in. May 15th would be the closing date. That's the date the funds would be available to the city. So the greater level of detail is provided on page 3. This is broken into really 3 sections: your existing payments, the hypothetical new issues, and then the long-term impact to taxpayers and to your budget. The far left-hand columns, you can see there's existing debt payments. Those are payments already committed to from prior financings. It's broken into your levy supported and total. So the total existing payments, that includes levy supported, debt that's related to TIF districts, Bay Beach, other revenue enterprises like the sanitary sewer system. That's all included in that first column. If you're focusing strictly on the levy support, the taxpayer support, that's the column immediately to the right of that. And then you see the long-term financing plan for the $2,675,000 notes repaid over 10 years. That's all levy supported. Next to that, $14,775,000 of a bond issue repaid over 20 years. And you'll see 3 columns that follow. That bond issue is broken into a levy supported component, which is $8,745,000. There's the $5 million Bay Beach component, and then the sewerage system, $1,030,000. So the column underneath, it says combined levy supported debt service. This gives an indication on the change of the budget going into 2019. So this year's debt service budget for levy, excluding some offsetting revenues, is just under $9.5 million. Going into next year, that would increase to $9,650,000. So roughly, if we factor in some offsetting revenues, it's about a $215,000 increase to the levy based on the current bonding proposal. For planning purposes, we layer in future hypothetical financings. At this point, they're penciled in at $6.5 million, and that's reflected then on the far right-hand column. So going forward, the increases to the debt service levy to fund future capital needs. So of course, as these projects change, if projects are taken out, we would reduce the borrowing. If things are added in or exchanged, borrowing either stays the same or increases. Part of the rationale for the borrowing proposal, however, is to really kind of maintain the same level of debt that the city has outstanding today. So for example, last year, you repaid $13.5 million of principal. That's debt you had outstanding was repaid last year. This year, you're scheduled to repay about the same amount, about $13.5 million. So this bonding proposal increases debt slightly, but it stays in line really with what you've been paying off over the last 2 years. It's certainly well below some of the other figures I've heard, $20-25 million. It's well below those amounts. That's important because when Moody's Investor Service assigns the bond rating to the city's debt, one of the factors it looks at is the amount of debt that's outstanding. The more debt that's outstanding, Moody's starts to raise warning flags. They start to say your debt's getting a little bit high. They also take that into consideration with what's called overlapping entities. So that's going to be the county, school districts, Green Bay Metropolitan Sewage District. When they factor all of that debt together, they're saying that you're a little above average in terms of the amount of debt outstanding compared to other similarly rated entities. So that, again, stresses the importance of targeting, keeping roughly the same amount of debt. The trade-off, going to a higher debt, there's the risk that the bond rating is reduced, it's downgraded, and then that simply translates into higher costs, higher interest rates on the debt. So that's the outline of what I have. I can answer specific questions, or I'm certainly going to be here if something comes up as you're talking about.
I've got a question about, let's talk about our Moody's and our rating that we have with them right now. So as I understand it now, this is our second consecutive year where we'll be actually bonding more than what we're expiring. Is that right?
Correct.
Is Moody's looking more at, once that kind of becomes a trend, or are they looking more at what is your just annual dollar amount that you are bringing in? I guess if another project came up, and then again, the pool has been a real hot topic, and it'll be proposed to have that added back in. I just would like to kind of get a straight answer. I mean, look, if we added $2 more million to the bonding this year, or nearly $3 million to the bonding this year, is our past history of always paying off more than what we've borrowed going to offset having a little extra borrowing this year?
Yeah. Moody's looks at your past history, but they're also going to look at how you compare to peers that are rated AA2. And it's that comparison that probably carries more weight than the past history of where you were historically in terms of amount of debt. One of the rating factors, Moody's is pretty specific, said in last year's report, factors that could lead to a downgrade, and it says increases to the city's debt. What it doesn't say is how much. Is it 2 million? Is it 5 million? We don't know. But it is an increase. So to the extent we can keep that debt roughly the same as what's being paid off, probably less likely to see that downgrade.
And then Moody's doesn't really care how that money's paid off. They're just looking at what is actually being bonded, right? So they don't care that $5 million is going to be paid back through revenues and $8 million is going to levy. I mean,
Well,
they're just looking at you paid off this much, you're
Okay.
borrowing this much.
They look at essential service revenue bond portion, or revenue debt. So that would be your sanitary sewer, water
Essential
system.
service,
If you borrow general obligation for that, we can show them there's a history of revenue payment. They take into consideration the TIF debt, but they don't completely say wipe that from the analysis because it's not an essential service utility. It's a debt that the city would have to pay regardless if there's funds available from the TIF district or not.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. I guess at this point, do you have anything for us, Dinah, or we will?
No, I don't. I mean, I have a couple other documents. I actually am going to hand out one. It actually goes right along with what Brad just presented. And it's just based on really his PowerPoint. So I threw this together today, and I'm sure the question will ask, well, how would this affect our 19 budget? So I threw a spreadsheet together. And if you look at 2018, if you look at 2018, the middle column, there's 9.1 million. That is what we did a levy for it in 2018. Brad's number showed about 9.4. That's because we have a little bit of revenue, some interest revenue coming in, but that's how it correlates. He has 9.4 here. We levied 9.1 because we had a few offsetting revenues. So I just wanted to show this chart and graph just shows how, back, it kind of goes back to the story where we had said that for the last 10 years or so that we have been paying off more than we've been borrowing. So this is the second year in a row we're borrowing more. So that's why I think I know there's some questions, why this year, why we have, it's not trying to cut our bonding, just because we're starting a trend where we're starting to borrow more than we're paying off. This is the second year in a row. So if you look in the middle of the chart, the one with the triangles, it's pretty level, and then you can see as it, drops down, so the last 5 years or so, it's been pretty level. It's just going to start going back up. Based on what Brad had presented, it would probably, unless we have other revenues or something else changes, we will probably be taking our general levy up at least to 9.3 or 4 next year, based on this bonding request and the way they've allocated it. So kind of wanted to reference how his spreadsheet will affect our next year's budget.
Do you know approximately what our payoff next year is going to be? What debt will be retiring for 2019?
Yes, 2019?
Well, I guess 2018.
Yes, yes, we know exactly.
Next time around.
Well, we know 18, yes, we have 19.
Thir-
We have the schedules all the way out to,
It's 13 this year.
correct. Next year would be, actually, I do have that spreadsheet. Give me 1 minute, I just open it up.
Great, thank you.
Yes, is it on it? 14.4 million is what he's saying.
Next year.
Yep. Thank you, Fred. I think that, again, that's the only reason why I think there was a little bit more concern, just want to show why there were some cuts made, recommended cuts made, just because our trend is going up. But it is really your wishes to bond as you please.
Okay, at this point, I would ask the committee if we have any questions. We can go right through this budget and everything that you have in front of you, all these bonding requests, if you have any questions specifically for any department.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to open the floor, see if they have anything
No.
before we discuss it?
I'll do that first. I was just going to see if, well, since we have our department heads here, if we get our questions answered first, that
I just
might
have one
answer
question.
some from the public.
Oh, okay.
Sure, what department do you need on this there?
DPW.
Director Grenier, would you be able to come up to the podium?
It'll be just.
Get you on
it'll be-
camera.
It'll be a quick question.
Got a little sun?
Yeah.
Yep.
We saw pictures. Very nice. Steve, when they mentioned pavement, 6.63 million, and the mayor said something about mostly Webster. I just wanted to follow up on that as far as, is that the trend there? I mean, when you said pavement?
Well,
For the bonding request, I just wanted to know, they said Webster, this could be a big project. I just wanted to know
yeah, that
what that
is,
covered. What the,
$2.3 million of this alone is relative to real estate acquisition associated with the Webster project. So that's a one-time thing, yes.
right, okay. And I just, as far as payment for other areas in the city, what percentage of that besides Webster? You said just what was it, 2 point what?
About 2.3 of the 6.6 that we're requesting is relative to the real estate acquisition on Webster alone.
And the rest will be for other.
The rest is all the various projects that we do that are listed in the capital improvement program that went through a couple of months ago.
All right. That's all I have.
Director Grenier, when the public hearings are held and streets are pulled from the, I think this year we had 7,100 feet that we
Correct.
pulled out of the capital improvements program on streets that were scheduled for repair. Do we look at next street up and try to continue to do that work, or do we
No,
then
we
just
don't.
request less?
The program for the year is the program for the year. When those streets are pulled, there's a hole in the program.
Okay,
So yes, we have not had an opportunity, the bonding request was prepared prior to the public hearing for those streets. There will be a reduction in the overall expenditures as a result of those streets coming out. We have not quantified that yet because we haven't bid the project. And there just simply wasn't time to do that between when the streets got pulled and when this bond request came forward. That's why, when I had a conversation with you earlier today, the reduction that we're seeing in the bond request,
Right.
I feel comfortable with that. The vast majority of that is going to be made up by the reduction in street length that we're doing this year, and the remainder of it will be in contingency. That's why I support the 10% reduction
your engineering staff that you have on hand right now, though, could have handled that extra 7,100 feet?
That
I mean,
was-
I know that you won't take on a workload that's more than,
We could have
What you
handled
can handle.
that 7,100 feet.
okay.
That was designed over the winter. To add another 7,100 feet means I have to go back into design.
Gotcha.
And with the loss of my assistant city engineer, the promotion of one of my staff engineers to assistant city engineer, I'm still down a staff engineer. Can I take on another 7,100 feet and get it done this year? No. Can't.
So all the design work on those streets was already done? And
Yes.
then they were pulled out of the program as well?
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any further questions on this. All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee for any of our department heads?
Yeah, I'd like to-
Parks and Rec? Oh, I'm sorry, Parks? Yep, Alderman Slotnick. If Parks and Rec could come up, Dan?
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, what can I help you with?
Help me with my recollection.
Yes.
I thought I read in the minutes of the park committee that the Bay Beach project was $5 million total. And and the discussion at the committee meeting was that would be $1 million of fundraising, $1 million of grants, and then an additional $3 million that needed to be bonded. And now I'm seeing a bonding request for $5 million.
Correct, that was the original proposal at the park committee. So the project at the time, the scope of work involved the beach, the pier, the boardwalk, and the bathhouse. And that project dollar amount came out to $5 million, of which $3 million was going to be bonded, $1 million was going to be fundraised, and $1 million was going to be grants.
That's what I recall.
And the proposal at the time was to pay for the bond payments out of the general funding, the general accounts,
Yes, I recall
versus
that.
the Bay Beach account. So what's been modified in this proposal by the mayor was to turn it to a $7 million project instead of a $5 million project. And what we added to it was we added to the scope of work. And what that scope of work would be parking lot improvements. As you know, we do have a lot of parking issues out at Bay Beach right now. There is a shortage of parking on the busy days, and it's jam-packed. We're anticipating with the construction of the beach that could be compounded and make even worse. So the additional $2 million would be for some stormwater management and to do some parking lot improvements. In addition, we would also be able to start some renovations to the pavilion. We have a long-term vision to make that a year-round facility, rental facility. Right now, it's just seasonal. So the additional $2 million would go towards pavilion renovations and also parking lot improvements. The other proposal, as the mayor indicated, was now, instead of using the general funding or the general accounts to pay for the bond payments, it's being proposed to come out of the Bay Beach revenue account.
The mayor also made reference to some redoing of an agreement between the city and the Friends of Bay Beach. Can you
Yes.
give me the details of that? Why did we have to redo an agreement?
Sure, yeah, we'll be bringing that forward to the park committee tomorrow for review and discussion. But really, when the Ferris wheel was approved, if you look at the motion that was approved by the park committee, it was conditional upon certain elements. So it was accept the donation, and part of the conditions were that we couldn't use the Bay Beach account to fund the beach, pier, and boardwalk unless it's after 5 years from now. So there were a few other conditions and stipulations to it, but that was the gist of it. So after the park committee approved that motion with the conditions, we then put together an agreement which the city signed and the Friends of Bay Beach signed, which basically, solidified those conditions. But with this proposal, where we're using the Bay Beach revenues to pay off the bond, we now have to go back and amend that agreement to make it match this proposal. We have reviewed this with the Friends of Bay Beach. We have somebody here from the Friends group if you have questions. But they've discussed it as a group, and they are supportive of the beach project. I don't want to speak for them, but they have indicated that they're supportive of the project, and they are supportive of the amendments to the agreement.
Okay, so my recollection was correct then that the beach the beach restoration and the boardwalk and the pier was a $5 million project.
Correct.
And what's now being proposed is a $7 million project, the additional $2 million going for other things.
Yes, parking lot and pavilion renovations, in addition to the beach pier and boardwalk.
Okay, thank you, that's all
Sure.
I need.
Would the stormwater, there's stormwater management program that's got to be put in with the parking lots? and
That would
with
be
all the different
required
paving?
with the parking lot.
Is that typically a city cost, or is that always, would that be something that would eventually be billed back to Bay Beach regardless?
That always, whenever the Parks Department has to do stormwater management for any project, it gets billed to the cost of that project. So in this case, it would be part of the bond request specifically for this project. There is no other account, we just add that to the project budget, knowing that it needs to be done.
Now, I believe the beach originally was part of was it the 10-year plan when the original plan with the Friends of Bay Beach was put together?
Yep.
And we're 5 years into that?
Yeah, it was actually a 20-year master plan.
20-year master plan.
So the plan was created in 2007. The Friends of Bay Beach group formed after that. I don't remember the exact year that they formed. I'm thinking it was 11 or 12 when they formed. So we are, into that master plan, but we really weren't able to implement much of the master plan until the Friends group was involved, and the Bay Beach account became a segregated account. So.
Yes, Alderman Steuer?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Dan, you mentioned that $2 million extra, for the renovation of the pavilion. Is that a time-sensitive type project? I mean, do you need that to happen in order for other things to develop, with the overall plan?
Yeah, as the mayor indicated, there is some advantages to doing the project as a whole. And so doing it all in one piece and getting it done so that we can, take advantage of the revenues that come along with that pavilion renovation.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
Yes, Alderman Wayne?
Dan, I noticed that we talk a lot about Bay Beach and all that, but then I see equipment, and I'll put them both together, equipment and parks projects.
Yes.
Took 22% and 20% out. I mean, you would think that if we're gonna bond that much, that the projects that were taken out would be able to be put in here and get done. And especially with the equipment, you're gonna need equipment. I mean, how essential is this stuff that's taken out?
Well, I mean, obviously, if it wasn't in our initial request, there's a need for it because it was in our initial request. Could we get by for a year or two and add it to the next bond request? I think we could. So I went through and, I can hand this out if you're at all interested, but
Yeah.
this is,
I will say, Alderman Dwayne, in my conversation with Mr. Duchek today, he was the perfect politician,
Yeah.
saying, we're satisfied with what's
Oh, I
presented
do.
to us, but we could always handle more.
and that's the reality. I mean, any director you talk to is going to tell you we can always use more for their department. So what I laid out here are the proposed recommendations to get us within the mayor's requested bond request. So what I'm proposing to remove out of projects is we did request $150,000 in miscellaneous paving throughout the parks. There was no project specifically designated for that funding, and so we do have some money left over from previous years where we put it into our general account. So we feel for a year that this is adequate, that it could be removed if the city council wants to stick with this bond request that's being proposed. The other thing that was pulled out was if you look at pool repairs, you'll see that refurbishing the slides at Joanne's was removed. Those slides are starting to get old. They're original to the pool. Nobody is telling us that they're unsafe, so they're still adequate to use for another season. But we are getting to the point where we have to refurbish them, recolor or re-gel coat them, and just kind of recaulk the joints. And once we do that, it'll last for many years to come. So. But we feel that one could wait another year and add it to next year's bond request. So those would be the two projects that would be removed to make up the total amount for projects. As far as equipment replacement, what we would propose is to remove the pickup truck with the plow. So Again, it's a necessary equipment replacement, but I think we could get by another year if necessary.
Is that what's used mostly here at City Hall parking lot and stuff, or where is that truck and plow?
We
used
use it,
majorly?
but we use it for all, plowing all parking lots. We use it for some walkways if they're wide enough, but it's mainly parking lots and, you know, over at the park shop and things like that. So,
Alderman Square?
Thank you, Chair. Dan, you and I have had discussions on Beaver Dam, ball fields, as well as Perkins Park, and
yes.
could you explain that, you know, for the committee, as far as, you know, the thought process, you decided to go ahead with that versus Perkins Park? Could you just explain that a little bit?
Sure. Both projects we've been discussing for years, so they're not recent projects. Beaver Dam ball fields, what we're doing there is there was originally 3 ball fields there. One of them was really unusable because it was wet all the time. And so what we're doing there is we're redesigning those, and we rebuilt them last fall. So we're going to finish it up this year. So all of the fields have been reconfigured, and now they drain properly. So now they're all all the backstops are right next to each other instead of scattered throughout the park. So it's more conducive to tournament play than it was before. We're also requesting funding in here for that project, and that's to finish up the project. So one thing we have to do this fall is to do some sports lighting. We have some money set aside through community development block grant funding and previous bond requests to do the sports lighting, but in this case, it's really essential to have that sports lighting to really utilize those fields to their fullest potential. In addition, we included $84,000 in here for bleachers and scoreboards because that we currently don't have any funding set aside for that. So, like I said, we have requested funding for multiple years for that one, and this request here for $84,000 finishes that project. As far as Perkins Park goes, we did approve a concept for Perkins Park several years ago, which included on the west end to rebuild those Little League fields from 2 fields to 3 fields, and to remove the tennis courts that are there and rebuild them. So we've been phasing that in over time. This year, or last fall, we relocated the tennis courts. So now there's room to do improvements on the west end of that park for Little League fields or something else like soccer fields. Now, we have been talking to the Little League fields recently. They would prefer to have a location with 4 fields instead of 3, but they would take 3. We can't fit 4 at that location. So, you know, we may reevaluate at some point in the near future the needs over at Perkins Park. But our intent is to redevelop that west end, and we'll be looking at additional funding in the future for that.
So as far as a time frame, you don't really have a setup for that? It could be just over the next number of years?
It'll be over the next few years, and really it depends on what the demands are and what the Little League group wants for that location in particular, or do they want to find an alternate location? So.
All right, thank you.
The only other question I had, no, I'll come in here, Tom. The only other question I had were, do we need to start considering any types of preparations for Joanne's Field once the Bullfrogs leave that next year?
Well, we've already had some staff meetings to kind of discuss what happens with that facility. So, you know, the city is going to take on the maintenance of it right now because it is a city facility. Right now, the Bullfrogs maintain the vast majority of it. We help them out, but they do most of it. Okay. We have been approached by a lot of different user groups who want to use that facility because it is, you know, our nicest ball field that's out there. So we'll be meeting with the user groups over the next few months and kind of coming back to the park committee with a proposal of how we're going to operate and how it's going to be used. But we're not quite ready to be at that point yet. We have to have more discussions with user groups.
The changes in the investments that the Frogs put into it in the past, like the screen in the back and the bleachers that they installed, are those items now property of the city?
Yes, they are. So
Okay.
everything that's been developed there is now city property.
Okay.
Are we going to need all of those amenities for our operation of it? Probably not, but we'll
Put
have
on
to
Craigslist.
evaluate that.
All right. Sorry, Alderman Slack?
Thank you. Dan, I'd like to go back to my original question for a minute. We had a $5 million beach project at Bay Beach.
Correct.
Now you got a $7 million project that includes all the beach work,
Yes.
plus pavilion renovations and parking lot.
Correct.
And I heard the statement that it's advantageous to do all this at once. I don't see an obvious linkage between parking lot work and restoration of the beach and,
Well, I think the parking lot is actually fairly critical in the success of everything, because the anticipation is more people are gonna go out to Bay Beach, especially on the nice days. So we know that the nice days are already packed solid, and we have a shortage of parking. And if we add a sand beach to this mix, our concern is that it's just gonna be compounded and even make it even worse. So I feel that the parking lot is actually critical to the success of the beach. It wasn't included in the original proposal, because obviously there were concerns about, you know, the bond payments and what we really could afford to add to our payments and still meet all of our, you know, bonding goals. But now that, you know, we reevaluated and we looked at what the Bay Beach account can support, for bond payments, I feel pretty comfortable that the additional $2 million in bonding, that the park can pay for that without really affecting the operations out there.
what, the growth of this from a $5 million proposal to a $7 million proposal, was that discussed at Park Committee?
No, it was not, because that was not part of the proposal initially a month ago when we brought it to the Park Committee for review. So it's come up in the last week or two as we kind of restructured this.
Well, tell me more about that. How is it went from 5 to 7? We added these things. What was the motivating force for that?
Well, the motivating force for it was the bond payments and who is going to be paying those bond payments, and or what account is going to be paying those. Like I indicated, there was a concern that if it was coming out of the general account and basically being added on to the taxpayers' bill, that there was some concern that maybe the parking lot could wait a year until the beach is done. After reevaluating it, I guess we feel pretty strongly if the park can support the payments, there's really some benefit to really doing the parking lot and the pavilion in conjunction with the other project.
Okay, I was very surprised when I saw the discussion about putting it on the general levy to begin with, because it's my understanding that we operate Bay Beach as an enterprise fund.
Correct.
So why was it proposed to be on the general levy to begin with versus coming out of revenues from Bay Beach?
Initially, it had a lot to do with the agreement with the donation of the Ferris wheel. Because as I mentioned, as part of the condition of accepting the donations, those terms were fairly clear in the conditions, and that agreement was put in place.
Okay.
But after having some discussions with the Friends of Bay Beach, I think we're all comfortable with this revised proposal, so that's really what changed things.
Can you provide us with copies of that agreement?
Sure. Actually, we're going
Before it was modified and
Yeah,
the
actually,
modifications
we're
recently made?
going to be talking about that at the Park Committee tomorrow.
Okay.
We've already sent that packet of information out, and the Park Committee already received both drafts for their review, but we can put it in everyone's mailbox.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And that would have been 5 years of bond payments on the general levy, and then it would have transferred to the Bay Beach Fund, correct? On the original?
Potentially, that's not how it was proposed at the Park Committee. It was proposed that a tax levy would pay all of it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just one correction, Bay Beach is a special revenue fund, not an enterprise fund. In our ordinance, it's a special revenue fund.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for our Parks Director?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Anybody on the committee like to address anybody else for city staff?
Yeah, I would like to talk to Chief Whitten, please.
Your next guy up.
Good evening. Good evening.
Chief, when we were talking about the budget, I asked you a lot of questions, and, we were talking about a lot of equipment you needed, pieces here and pieces there, and I said we talked about it, Bonnie. But I see the self-contained breathing apparatuses that they're taking 50%, or the mayor's asking you to take 50% out. for me, I think to cover, that won't cover our entire staff.
Yeah, that's correct. You know, I offered this up as an alternative, and I wanted to make this point. If you hadn't asked the question, I certainly would have made this point tonight. It's really about the way that we structure this purchase. I don't intend to make two separate purchases. I don't intend to make a purchase in 18 and then a purchase in 19, just because we want things standardized and we want the latest technology today that we can get a hold of. It's going to take us a couple of months to do the evaluation of the available equipment that's out there. We're not married to what we currently have. So we want to take a little bit of time to be able to do that evaluation, to have our crews that use the equipment do that evaluation. But my intention is to structure the bid so that all equipment is delivered in 18 with, and essentially the city is obligating itself to making the second payment out of the bonding in 19. So we would structure the deal with whoever the company is, and these are multinational companies, or big companies that can kind of float that debt, if you would call it, as part of their pricing, so that we would have all the equipment here well before the end of this year, put it into service, so that it's all standardized. We have the latest safety equipment for our personnel. This is a critical, if not the most critical, safety piece of the device that we have for our personnel. Take it all in 18, but make that second payment whenever the bonding is completed in 19, but
So you're
certainly.
gonna, so what, essentially, you're gonna cover half of it this year, and hopefully the bonding's gonna be covered, the other half's gonna be covered, and you have somebody out there that's willing to do that?
All the major players that provide self-contained breathing apparatus are big enough that, yes, that's something that can be structured in the deal.
Okay, so you're good with what I'm looking at here?
I'm fine with it as long as the council understands that you're obligating the second half of this payment in 19.
I mean, do we have to, my question, the reason I'm asking, do we have to somehow, and Diana, do we have to put that in our statement? Because the council can change it at any time. I mean, we're gonna pass this and say, well, you promised this, and then the next council is gonna say, well, you know, tough luck.
I certainly think that would be something that should be mentioned, that the
Yes.
intent is that you're going to buy and pay for this over 2 years worth of bonding.
We're going to
Okay.
take it in 18, but we're going to pay it over a 2-year span. It
Right.
You know, it essentially eliminates half of the bonding requirement this year.
I just think that needs to be duly noted,
And
or
it's-
somehow.
That has been done and approved before with neighborhood
Yeah.
enhancement funds being
Yeah.
spread out over a 2-year period.
Right. I
So
just
I
want
think
that.
there is
I'm
precedence for us to do
concerned.
that.
I was past that.
If that's an amendment that you're making
Yes.
to this request, then I would accept that amendment if somebody wanted to second it.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to amend the bonding request to spread the purchase, make it 100% of the request, but to spread it over this year and next year's bonding. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chief, just one,
And opposed?
are you set then?
Yep.
I just want to make sure, at Parks, they said they're set, you're good with that?
Yeah, you know, if you'll remember, I've provided this committee, you know, we're looking at, you know, a 20-year span in the fire department on all of our capital requests. I have provided that to this committee on a regular basis. It has been updated again. I'll provide it to the next council when it's, as soon as they're seated. So that you know that, you know, what we're requesting are things that, through our experience and through use and through, you know, review and maintenance and all the things that happen, that there is rhyme and reason as to why we make the requests, and you can see that they're coming, so that you don't have any surprises. So that's the reason we've done those things. That's why we provided you those documents, and we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, well, that was the only reduction I saw on your,
We had some other things that we eliminated out of there, but we have a different source, some money that exists in a different account that is controlled by the fire department, that we can take those things out of, and we're perfectly fine with it.
Thank you.
It will help with our arbitrage rules and other things that finance is always concerned about, and so, you know, we want to play well in the sandbox, and we're fine with it.
All right. Any other questions for Chief Lake? No? Okay, thank you, Chief.
police, police? Chief Smith?
Yeah. Come on up, Chief Smith.
I'm sorry.
You can't hide.
I got a question for you, and I'm gonna go the same route. You know, when I see equipment for the police department, I see 25% reduction. You know, that kind of scares me that your officers are out there with something they might need. You gotta, you know, I'm just curious in what it is that seems to be like something big was cut.
Mostly the number of vehicles. We were looking for more replacement squads. I think our original replacement squads were asking for 15 to update our fleet with more of the SUVs. And, that might have been, shooting for the moon, so to speak, asking for more of those. So I think we can get by with the 7 that we have here. We're integrating the new SUV into our fleet, that Florida Explorer. We're hoping that we can go with a 4-year replacement cycle on those so we can save money in the long term. I know we spoke about that in the
Right.
past. The reports, guys seem like they like them out there. They're not as quite as sporty or as quick as the Charger, but all in all, I think they're working out well. And again, survivability is better than those. So we're going for a fewer number of them. They are a little bit pricier by a few $1,000s over the Charger, but I think we'll be able to get by, and talking to our mechanics, we'll be able to get by with that number.
Okay, so that's basically, the other stuff I see 10%, but usually when it's 10%, that's agreement you make with the mayor, so.
The other 2 items are actually, Mike could speak to the other 2 items if you're talking the
The
fiber.
wiring
Right,
and stuff.
right.
Those would actually be a Mike, give questions for Mike.
I mean, how essential is that, I can't see somebody waiting for something like this.
With the wire, or
Yeah.
the wireless, again, that's probably a Mike Ronick question, rather than smarter about that stuff.
Yeah,
than
he's
I am.
coming.
Yep, thank you, sir.
We're okay with the last 10% being cut from this. Basically, what's going to happen is that we're going to get fiber cable from Lambeau Field, now connected directly to City Hall, where it was always a wireless network, and the same thing to the evidence yard. And basically, the 10% just reduces like almost the last 1% getting inside the building, which will cover with some other funding.
Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Any other questions for Chief Smith? Or police? I think we're good.
Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you. I would like to ask either Dr. Vonk or quasi-Dr. Cheryl Ringerwig to come on up and talk about neighborhood enhancement funds. I guess there isn't really a request, and knowing that we're in a tight bonding year, I'm just kind of curious about what the status of our current funds are, what we're expecting maybe to be paid back into the program in 2018, where it could be reused again.
Sure, and just from an overall bonding perspective, they're not included in this. Bond counsel advised us that they would be considered taxable, and so that portion of it would require some exorbitant fees for just that amount. So we've decided that we will look at for bonding for that, at the state trust fund or some other sources that we can do a little bit better borrowing without having to incur those fees. So that's why it's not included in this particular request.
We will be making the request though, because I
Correct.
think our balance is getting pretty low.
Yes.
And remember that not only do we do the enhancement work, but we also take demolitions out of there now. That was
Right.
one of the requests. So our balance is getting low. We're going to make the request probably pretty quick.
Probably after this general bonding goes
Yep.
through, we'll be back with a request for the neighborhood enhancement funds.
Mhm.
And we'll have a full report, kind of where we're at to date with that balance. And I think that was one of the things that went through also the RDA, to work with a realtor on moving some of our properties. So we look at projecting some of the funds coming back into that account.
Great. That's all I had. Any other questions?
I'm good with that.
You guys are good? Cool. Thank you.
I have a question for Diana.
Yes. Athletic.
Diana, I'm thinking back at the debt policy that the city established several years ago.
Correct?
And my recollection is that in that debt policy, there's language pretty consistent with the last line in the mayor's first paragraph in his letter here, which says the items bonded for should outlast the bond schedule.
Correct.
But then I look at the 2018 bonding and equipment detail page in the package here,
Correct.
and I only see 3 line items that they happen to be in the Parks Department, where the life goes out to 20 years. But these are 20-year bonds, right?
These are 10-year notes. So, it kind of.
I thought Brad showed us that 10-year notes would be for 2.6 million and 14.7 million the general obligation bonds for 20 years.
Correct. You don't have the columns, but I took the exact same sheet that you have, and I have it broke down exactly as Brad has, I have bonds and notes, and all the equipment on that sheet is in the notes. It's in the notes section. So when on the first page where he has the $2.6 million of notes, that includes almost all of the equipment that's on that detail sheet.
No,
Okay.
it's listed.
I understand.
I didn't want to add more columns than necessary on the spreadsheet, but we already have it broke out. I know exactly which items are going to notes versus which are going to bond.
Okay, thank you.
So,
I didn't have
and
the-
some
You have to
items are under
cross-reference
10
it,
years,
that's all.
but after talking to both Baird and Foley, they look at the overall average life of those pieces of equipment, because I'd asked, should we be taking a 5-year note out, or on some of these items that are
Yes,
shorter than
because
10?
there are a lot of items under 10 years.
Right, they said overall, as long as the average life is, it will, if anything, you'll pay off the items that are shorter life, or in the first couple of years of principal, and then you'll be paying for the items that are longer term, toward the end of the 10 years.
So we can say that everything on here conforms to our
Correct.
debt policy?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, at this time, for the sake of saving committee work being done on the council floor, we do have several other alders here, and I would open this up almost kind of like a little bit of a town hall. If any of the alders in the audience would like to address any questions directly to staff, I would allow that at this time. But I would just ask that you please come up to the podium. Alderperson Dorff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question I'd like to address is to Celestine, and it's about the security items that I saw. And I want to know, in addition, where are cameras? Because we don't have cameras in City Hall, and I really think that's important too. So, tell me about the times.
Thank you. I'm sorry if this is awkward, but let's make sure it's all recorded.
Yeah, we want to make sure.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the way we really need to do things moving
Great.
forward with our agenda management software. If you don't know, this is Nate Brumming, he's our new risk manager. And so
Welcome.
essentially what we're doing is carrying on the work of Colleen Hintz, who had started this. So to answer Alderwoman Dorff's question, we do have a list of priorities, essentially, and this is through conversations with senior staff, a few conversations with our emergency management or public safety professionals, and then also between Joe Falls and myself and Nate coming to some conclusions about all the conversations we've had. And so our priorities are to do some training in City Hall, with City Hall and also with the rest of our staff in other buildings regarding, and I'm just going through the whole thing, and I'll get to the cameras. Okay. Then we have an emergency phone system that no one is really trained on, so we're going to include that as well. We also need to have some better signage on the first floor to direct people where they're going to go. Our second priority, and really this is where our bond request comes in, and that is with, we need key card access to staff-only areas. So we have about 15 doors in City Hall that need to have key card access. With that key card, we will have, it'll be an ID. So the school district has this. It's basically a card, it would have a name and the city logo. You go up to a key card access terminal, and then it would open the door. We can turn them off, turn them on, we can give access, deny access, and so that would be very beneficial for us. The other issue that we have addressed in our bonding request is to do some better security for the clerk's office.
That was going to be my question.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Our third priority, we have some other areas in City Hall where we know that we need to make some physical improvements, and the cameras would be included in that. So we did install some cameras in some other areas, some hallways, but we have, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, 2 cameras left to install in City Council chambers. Is that correct? Or did we already install those?
There's cameras installed in everything.
Okay, so those are taken care of, and we need 3rd floor and 5th floor cameras to be installed.
And
So that was
exterior?
and exterior cameras would also come in our
Priority 4.
priority 4.
Oh, that's
Right.
And when is priority 4 and priority 3, when are they going to be brought forward?
So we would like for priority 4 and priority 3, because in priority 4, we also would like to do something different with our doors. We have some ADA non-accessible doors, as well as we have doors that have locks and we don't know who has the keys. And so we would most likely come next year with that bonding request. And when I say doors, I mean staff office doors. So we're using the key card access to keep staff where staff needs to be, to keep the public where the public needs to be. But there is another layer of security that has to do with the locks to some of our office doors. So that would be, we'd be looking next year. All total, those requests are in the neighborhood of 50 plus, sorry. Yeah, I'd say 50 plus 35, so 85, all total.
Does the remodeling that's taking place this year on the sixth floor, is that already taken
It is-
into
that is
account
not-
on that? So
Yes,
that'll be
that is
done?
in their bonding request on an ours.
Okay.
Yes, they already designed those security protocols in.
Good.
Does that answer your question, Walter?
It does, I'd certainly like to see those moved up, especially because in today's climate,
Mhm.
I think cameras definitely act as a deterrent, and things do happen outside the building, and we have staff to be aware of and their safety to be concerned with. So if there's any way we can consider adding in the exterior cameras.
So
Celeste,
if I
what
may-
was the
Yes.
total on that?
Sure,
85?
if I may interject,
85?
so the total is probably in the neighborhood of $6,000 to $7,000 for those additional cameras. But if I may add, we have a need for laminated glass. So Chief Smith has a great video, which I don't have access to right now, which 3M is a film that you put on just regular glass, and it makes it less able to break.
Penetrable.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And so if I were to make a priority, the cameras would be still down before, underneath the laminated glass. And right now, the laminated glass is not included in what was approved from the mayor's suggestions for our bond request.
Which was only like $6,700.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a fairly small amount compared to.
Talking
my
less than
budget.
$15,000 for those items.
Okay.
And then, Diana, if that's another 15,000, is that something that we're looking at as a 10-year note? Or a 20-year
Yes,
bond?
yes, right now, any safety and security upgrades we have in the 10-year note, correct.
Is that something I'd make a motion on right now that you'd accept?
I think if the committee so chooses to send this forward with that recommendation to amend it, adding the, is it 13,400 approximately?
Right.
14,000 approximately?
Mhm.
Just put 14,000.
Okay, that's fine, and I have the documentation. so
I'll make
we
that
study.
motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to add $14,000 for the laminated glass and the exterior cameras for security for City Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other alders? Yes, Alderman Vanderleest, if you want to come up. Anybody in particular you'd like to address?
Just kind of address the committee. And, my thoughts are on the $5 million bonding. It's going to cost us $150,000 a year for the first 5 years. I think they only pay the interest only. Is that correct for the first 5 years? We didn't really have much discussion, about this proposal. It
Can we
was
get
kind
some
of just.
clarification on that?
Well, to answer the question, no, it's a principal and interest payment.
How much is the principal and interest payment then for both?
It's about $350,000 per year.
I feel that people in my district, I had not heard one word from anybody in the district saying that they'd like to see the city bond for another $5 million for the Bay Beach.
Alderman Vanderleest, just to be clear, that's not on the general levy.
Yeah.
So the taxpayers are not paying for that.
It's still city bonding. Is that correct?
It is bonded, yes.
My thought is that at our debt loads that we have right now, you all saw what they are, like 192 million. That I think it's a large amount to jump in for another 5 million. If you look at what we've done to the Department of Public Works, we haven't brought up too much about let's fix some of the roads. I think if you look at the bonding requests, I think people would be more in favor of bonding for the roads versus putting another $5 million on the city bonding. And I'm not saying that it's a bad proposal, I'm not saying that, but I think that some of this money could be raised through private donations. I think there'd be a lot of people that would get behind it. It seems like we don't put too much emphasis on, reaching out to the community, that we just want to, put it on the bonding issue. And I think where we could do better bonding would be with, with more emphasis on the roads. Department of Public Works, I think they've been shortchanged for quite a while as far as, what we're doing on the roads, maybe only like $1.5 million. And I feel that, we're talking about wheel taxes and all these things. I think the money's here. If you look at this bonding request, we have we take in about $107 million or close to that, or right around that. That's almost 5% of our operating budget of $100 million. $5 million would be, 5% of the budget right there. So I feel that, I think we can find other ways to try to achieve this goal and not have it go on the bonding. And I think it would be, as far as Bay Beach goes, I think it would even help Bay Beach if we could get some private people behind it. I know they've done a lot of things on Bay Beach, and I don't have any complaints with Bay Beach, how it operates. But I think that I'm here to talk about the bonding part of it, the money end of it. And I feel that we could do a better job. And I think that, we just brought it up here within the last week. We hasn't even gone through our Parks and Committee at this point, as far as, we talked about $3 million at the last meeting. Now it's $5 million, then they're talking now it's $7 million. So, you look at the figures, they're large figures, and I think it needs more discussion. I think that, to prove the bonding tonight, I don't think that'd be real, right on target. So my request would be to, try to find some private help on this, and I'm sure there's people in our community that would be willing to step up front.
Won't you handle that tomorrow, somewhat
I was
at
just gonna
Parks?
say.
You'll handle that
Okay,
somewhat.
we'll be talking about
Yeah.
it for sure, but I'm just saying that,
Right.
basically, I think it's, kind of been pushed through pretty fast, for the bonding request. And we haven't really even discussed it. We've heard one figure at the last meeting, now we're hearing another figure tonight. So that's,
I have a quick question. And maybe, I don't know if you can answer it, John, or maybe Diana. I mean, with these requests, I lost my train. Go ahead, sorry.
The train now runs under the
The
zip and
train
zip.
will come back. The train will come back.
Well, thank you.
Sorry. All right.
Thanks, John.
As far as fundraising for Bay Beach, obviously, we've heard the argument about doing this all at one time, and then I see the, interest rate here, which is 3.38. We don't know what that's gonna be next year, but money that's collected through donation can be used to pay the bond, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking a donation and using that money toward the beach by
Sure.
paying the bond?
That would be that'd be just a revenue that would go to the fund, and yeah.
Right.
And yes.
Can I ask a question? Who's doing this fundraising? I know I
For
talked to the
Bay
mayor,
Beach,
said
I
he
would
said he
think
wasn't
that'd
going
be
to.
Friends of Bay Beach. I would probably let Dan probably speak to her.
Okay, Dan.
The mayor has committed to fundraising for that.
He already told me he was not gonna do it, as of 2 days ago.
Not what I heard. So.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking, because he said he wasn't gonna get involved with any fundraising.
We will get clarification for that prior to council.
Okay. He told me himself.
Alderman Nenning. Any particular staff member?
Thank you. Just a couple of comments as chairman of the park committee. I agree that things have changed substantially from when our park committee reviewed the Bay Beach proposal a couple of weeks ago. And, it's certainly a good thing that we're able to fund the debt with the debt payments with the Bay Beach revenue account. I think to inform our committee of how that's going to work, I think we should put that on an agenda of our committee and just review the revenues, review the expenses that we have, and to see how that can all work out. I think, and I wasn't on the council at the time, but I think when the Zip and Pippin was approved, those were 10-year bonds. And because I think they were 10-year bonds, and because of that, there was a lot less interest and they could be paid off faster. I think we still have 2 or 3 years left on the Zip and Pippin bonds, but you know, I think we should really examine the revenues, projected revenues of Bay Beach, and to see if maybe that could be accelerated. I don't know. But we hadn't had those discussions at our committee. The information that we had at that point was different than what is here today. I do think there's some logic to going ahead with the parking lot because, you know, currently on busy days, there is a shortage of parking at Bay Beach, and with the beach and the wheel, it's going to even be worse. So I do think there's some logic to that. And if it's basically taking the 20-year plan, master plan, and accelerating some of the projects in a way that I think makes sense. So that's my comment on that. I had one other thought, just sitting back here listening to things, in regard to the fire department needs. You know, I know we're postponing some of the breathing apparatus and so on, but I was thinking that we just increased rescue squad fees. And I believe those, I know it takes a little while in collecting those fees, but you know, there could be a substantial amount of revenue there that we did not budget for this year. And I was going to talk to the chief about it, but I'll bring it up now. You know, my question is, with that, the increased rescue squad fees, could we either use some of it to purchase one of the rescue squads, or maybe accelerate the breathing apparatus purchase? So, just throw that out as an idea.
Sure, I think that's a fair question, Chief Litton. Was there a plan for that revenue coming into the year?
No, I mean, you know, in the end, all of our revenues that we collect in the fire department, which is, you know, well over $5 million with the ambulance squad fees, our contract with Alloway, and all the other services that we provide, probably close to $5.5 million. That really just goes into if we look at the offset to what our general obligation budget is, it's about a quarter of it, not quite a quarter of it. So how the council decides to pay or distribute is not really a concern of mine. You know, it's just I guess a conscious decision that you make. And I want to make sure that Alderman Netting understands that I'm not talking about delaying the purchase of any of the air packs. I fully intend to move forward with all of the air packs in 18, only with paying the second part of that in 19. Now, could some of those additional fees pay for that? Sure, the council can decide to do that. Could it be bonded? Could it be a 6-month note? There's all those possibilities. We'll know a lot better once we get the bid out on the street and we structure it the way that I've just talked about. We'll know what those costs are, and we'll know which way we'll be able to make a more informed decision on, all right, what's the best thing for our taxpayers? And that's kind of, I just want to make sure that you understood that I'm not asking to do it in 2 pieces, because that just doesn't make safety sense. But we do have some alternatives. That doesn't necessarily mean it's absolutely going to be bonded. It just has to be paid for next year. Where we take it from is totally a council decision.
Okay. All right, any other comments from any of the other alders in the audience? Yes, Alderperson Dorf.
Thank you again. I know this was kind of covered, but I just want specifically to ask, if we were to bond $2 to $3 million more, how does that affect our bond rating? I think our bond rating is a AA2, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so what specific impact would that have? I think I'm asking you.
Yeah, sure. Moody's has indicated that the city's debt burden is elevated for a AA2 category. They also indicate that increasing your debt further puts pressure, downward pressure on the bond rating. But what they don't tell us is how much. How much can you, they won't say it's 2 million, it's 3 million, it's 1 million. They don't get that specific. They talk in more generalities.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I want to add I have the document that came from Moody's that we are referencing, so I can share a copy and I can send an electronic copy out. This is the document
I appreciate that.
they reference the our rating, how we compare to, comparable to other people who are double A2, and how that our net direct debt versus full value is weakening. So I have that document, I will share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to follow up on that, Barb.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I assure you're concerned that way too. It just seems like, it makes it difficult to move forward. If we add another 2 million or 3 million, just with bonding, you're not sure what that number is, and
It does make it difficult, doesn't it?
It makes it very difficult to understand. So we're gonna be talking about Colburn and other issues.
Well, you're the only two that are guaranteed to be back here in 2 months. So.
Well, regardless, but there's a lot to be thought about that, and it would be nice if we had a little more to hold on to ahead of time, so that we wouldn't have to speculate.
But apparently, that's not an answer we're ever gonna get, right?
So.
We have a ratings call issued April 3rd. I think we have a Moody's call, and that will be, and that call, I'm not sure, next week or so, that's when they're gonna spend an hour with us and look at all of our numbers, how we ended 2017, and that, in that case, that is when they will probably make the determination to see if we stay at a double A2. And so that's when we would have to have our numbers, what we come out of next Tuesday, Monday's meeting, is what they'll consider. And they'll ask questions.
No, Diana, could you find out, as long as they're here, can you find out whether we add that 3 million, what it would do, since they're sitting right in front of you?
Well, no.
I'm just asking, because you said
No,
they're coming.
they're on the phone, and then
Yeah, well-
second, we present them with what we are bonding for. It's not a question and answer session, it is, and then they take all their information back, and then they run their analysis. And then I think a couple days later, they will give us their recommendation and their rating.
May I ask, what if there is no council meeting Monday night? What if it's Wednesday night? What if you don't have the answers for them?
Then what happens is we would push back our bonding, and that would push back the ratings call.
Okay.
The rating call has to be between the time that you were going to put your initial resolution in, and by the time you would go and go up for the sale, that call would.
But it would still happen.
It would happen
Yeah.
once,
Just-
we would have to move
just
the
have
whole
to move
bonding timeline out of 2 to 4 weeks based on when our next, when our meeting is. So yeah, if there's no recommendation out of the council next Tuesday, or next Monday, the whole schedule just gets moved out 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, if there's no other questions from any alderpersons, then I would ask if there are any staff members that wish to address the committee regarding anything that was cut, anything that they need, anything they feel is detrimental within these bonding requests. Look, I know everybody would like more money, but if there's something you feel you cannot live without, now would be the time to come forward and tell us. Okay? And then I would entertain a motion to open the floor.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to open the floor to any other interested parties that would like to come and speak regarding the bonding request and what we're recommending here for council. Yep, absolutely. Just come up to the podium. If you could just give your name and address.
Are we gonna vote
My
on the
name is
motion?
Robert Shade.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
My name is Robert Shade. I live at 3224 Vista Road in Alloway. I'm one of the founding members of Friends of Bay Beach, and let me just explain, we've had a long meeting and talked about this whole proposal that's going on. And the way we view this is we believe we've advanced the plan. Our mission was to advance the plan. You guys set this up as, I can't remember, the corporation, so they keep the revenues. And we've raised millions of dollars. And we bought 6 or 7 rides. There's some two trains opening this year. There's other rides coming up. And then we've already paid $1.1 million out on a big wheel that's coming in spring of 19. We honestly believe that the park, we put a plan together before we were founded, and we've kind of stuck to it, and we've exceeded. And we think the ridership will come up. And the issue is, the beach, the boardwalk, and the bathhouses do not generate revenue in themselves. They will in food, and people will come there, but if they take all our parking, some riders can't come on. So if somebody's on the boardwalk and on the beach, they may not be riding rides. So we need infrastructure. And also, I think, Dan, if the plan is right, the bathhouse is going to be attached to the main pavilion. In other words, the logical place is to put the bathrooms and everything in there. They're not going to be standalone and everything. So when Dan says we're going to put some money in the bathhouse, there's already
when they're talking about infrastructure, there's a ton of infrastructure when you build a big old pier and you put a boardwalk in, and we were putting in all these rides. They started that with the park. There was some granting there on a parking, the original parking lot drainage, so they're working on some that. I want to speak to the thing about getting funding from the community. We've been doing this 6 years. I worked really hard at it. We have meetings every other month. We have lists of people to talk to. We're trying really hard. I don't know if we can get $5 million more out of the community. There's things like the National Railroad Museum. There's charities all over the place. And because of the park, the way it's a public park, we aren't giving naming rights. And you all know the names that are on some of the buildings around here. And without naming rights, some of that doesn't happen. So we are really excited about our rides coming in. We think we're going to exceed our plan. We think there's going to be money, just like a TIF district. We're going to be successful enough that we're contributing money after year 5 to paying these bonds back. And that's kind of what we're committed to. We want to advance the park, but we really want to, we're offering these, we're saying, okay, let's go do it right now instead of waiting 5 years like we originally planned. We got 2 or 3 years left on the zip and pippin'. We got some infrastructure on the wheel. So that's why the 5-year thing, there's some money that is committed. And then after 5 years, we think we're going to generate some more revenue. So we just think it's a good project, and we appreciate you considering it. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Shade?
Nope.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the committee? Anybody else? Okay, take a motion to close.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to close the floor and return to regular order. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So at this point, unless there's any further comment from the director or from the committee, we can take action on the agenda item. The agenda item, again, read, consideration with possible action on a request by the Common Council and City Departments to review and approve the 2018 bonding request. Yes, Alderman Dwayne.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one change here, and it's in parks. We have a lot of parks. How many parks we got, Dan?
66.
66. And every year, it's either DPW or parks, they need this equipment. And every year, it's always going to say, well, we can keep it for one more year, and we know why they say that. But with that many parks, and for them saying that they need this truck, I believe them. And so, if anybody would second it, I'd like to put that $36,000 back in for that plow truck.
That would be the 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive truck
Yeah.
with plow for $36,000.
I mean, that's not a huge jump. I mean, and, because that's the only one I've seen cut in here. I don't see anything that was cut in DPW unless, Steve, is there?
There's $766,000 worth of DPW bonding that was cut.
Well, that's why we asked you earlier.
And I said, we can live with it the way that it is.
Okay.
I think one of the challenges I see is that, we go through the cuts now, and then, of course, at budget time, we go through it again. So it's just, we really rely on departments to come forward and give us
Right.
that information so that we can say, okay, we feel comfortable, you feel comfortable, we can move forward. We wanna
Director
work-
Grenier, you have a $21,500 cut on equipment, mobile radio upgrade. Were there any items, when we were sitting in the other room and we were going through the budget meeting, and there were several items in several departments that we said, bring this forward as a bonding request? Did any of those items that we said to move to now get cut from here?
No, the $1.2 million in equipment that we removed during the bonding, or during the budget process, those are all of, anything that you see that has a zero, that's, so the zero on the 1.2, the DPW, that came through.
How much?
Yeah. Where are we talking? I'm just trying to follow that.
No, I got the equipment accounts right here. It was $215,000 in mobile radio upgrade.
The mobile radios, if, I won't buy the mobile radios for engineering staff. I can live with engineering staff being on outdated technology for one more year, but I need it in operations. So the 10% cut on the mobile radios, I won't buy the mobile radios for the engineering staff, but I will put it in the operations.
What's that cost, Steve? What's the total on that? I don't see it.
Total cost is about $215,000 to equip everything.
It's listed right here.
But it's more critical that operations have those radios. It'd be nice not to have two radio systems, which we're currently operating with, but if engineering doesn't necessarily have to talk in real time the way operations does. It'd be nice, and I'll come back with a request next year to finish off the radio conversion with the engineering division, but I can live for a year the way that we're at. But I do need it in operations.
Okay, let's stick with the first one first, the parks, the 36 I put in there.
We do have an amendment that has been offered. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and we have a second to add the 3/4 ton four-wheel drive pickup with plow to the parks request. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Okay.
So that fails and that can be taken up at council on
Right.
Monday or
That's
Wednesday,
fine.
whenever we decide to have it here. Okay, are there any other?
Yes, I'd like to make a
Yes.
motion to put the $215,000 for those radios, mobile radio upgrade.
Well, 193,000 is in there already.
Yeah, this would be amending it from the mayor's recommendation of 193,500 and raising that to 215,000.
Yeah, I just.
So it's an additional
Let's take a
$21,500.
look right here, right here. Yeah,
Here.
5B.
On 5B, yep.
Yeah.
I apologize, I'm on the wrong page.
That's my fault.
Yeah.
That's a little bit
Okay.
more reasonable anyway.
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion though, so we'll put it back up to 215,000, so we're adding,
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
We have a motion, we have a second to increase the equipment mobile radio upgrade from 193,500 to 215,000, knowing that those radios then are for the engineering side. So that'll fully equip you. Okay, is there any discussion from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, and that one passes 3-1. Would the committee like to offer any other amendments or take action on the item?
You know, I guess this whole issue with Colburn Pool, I don't even know where to start with that.
I think we send it to the council.
Yeah.
If we
It'd be
just,
crazy to even
well,
start now.
just for, you know, just so the citizens and folks here know about that, we would talk about that at council. And I see Dave, you're standing here. I thought you might want to say something about it. Do you? Would you?
You make a motion to open the
I'll
floor.
motion to open the floor.
We have
Second.
We have a motion second to open the floor.
Do you want to speak to it or not? Or anybody?
I can't imagine we're going to take any action tonight.
Well, probably not, but I just want to hear.
Okay, all in
your
favor of
thoughts.
opening the floor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, name and address, please.
Dave Korst, 2732 Parkwood Drive, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Proud to be here. Thank you. You know, this has been going on a long time, and you know, and as I sit here tonight and listen to things that go from 3 to 5 to 7 and different things like that, we've been in the same situation there. We're asking for a lot of money to get this project done, and we've gone over the things that you know, that it'll bring to the community and the extra things going on and that type of thing. But one of the things that you know, that the city has came back and talked to me about was, you know, how can, you know, the swim teams are the ones that are going to benefit, you know, the most from, you know, running their huge events and that type of thing there. And you know, I've came back to them and you know, I at the Y, I'm speaking for myself as the YMCA swim team coach. I'm not speaking for anybody else. That, you know, we can run great swimming meets out there. We can generate lots of money. I at the Y am budgeted to make $1,000 in the summer on a swimming meet, and if we can get the meet going the way that I want to get a meet going, we're probably looking at a $40,000 meet. And speaking on behalf of the Y, why can't some of that money that is generated from these meets get earmarked back to help pay it off? And you know, extend that out over the length of the bond of 20 years or whatever it is, and you know, and collect an extra $25,000 a year from these events that will go on out at the pool. And And I think Park and Rec will speak a little bit. I mean, there are other events that can happen out at that pool besides swimming meets that can generate revenue for the city. And that doesn't even take into the consideration about what people are taking out of their pockets and spending in the city of Green Bay. I'm just talking about the money that's generated from events out there. Then why can't we help share that burden of what this cost is? And, you know, it's not gonna pay $5-6 million, but it'll sure put a little dent into it. And just, you know, again, I'm speaking on behalf of my swimming team. You know, that 50-meter pool is important to the sport of competitive swimming. And for training purposes, that the kids allowed to swim in there. We've got athletes in this town that are almost Olympic trial qualifiers. There will be Olympic trial qualifiers by the time we get to 2020, and that's in a 50-meter pool. And just the everyday use of that pool is the importance to me. Yes, we will run a swim meet out there, and we'll hopefully run huge swim meets out there. Because I've always said that the city of Green Bay, who wouldn't want to come to the city of Green Bay and swim in the swim meet, but just do everything that this town has to offer. And again, I'm speaking for the Y team, and I hope that the other teams out there would be willing to chip in and help out with this project too. But that's how I think the swim team can help.
I mean, does it benefit you more so to have this at Colburn, or would it make more sense to put it in a location where you've got more parking, better access? I mean, is it the Colburn thing, or is it the pool thing?
It's the pool. It's the 50-meter pool.
Right.
You know, it's just Colburn is a situation that's set up. You know, I've looked at it as there's a huge parking lot a block and a half away that they're going to close the Sears down in, that, you know, people can park over there and walk over to the swim meet. We work things out like that. You know, the other thing I mentioned, you know, we're looking at meets at, you know, Appleton. I'm just going to use them as an example. You know, they bring 800 to 1,000 athletes into the thing, and immediately we can charge a facility fee for every one of those 1,000 athletes. $6 an athlete. There's 6,000. There's 60,000. What is it? $6,000 that you know, that can go directly to the city. And then I don't know how we're going to do it, but you know, we make $40,000. Well, a third of that we're giving back to the city, or whatever, you know, whatever we can work out with the city. And for my behalf, what's going to help the city? You know, we're not. Yes, the Y is not for profit, and of course we like to make money. And the swim team is a program there that you know, that we do run swim meets, but our swim meets generate, you know, $30,000-$40,000 a year to the YMCA and that kind of thing. But when you're talking with a 50-meter pool and the opportunity to bring 800 to 1,000 people in, there's a lot of money. And why can't that money, or some of that money, go back to the city to help pay for this pool? That's all I wanted to say.
Any questions for Coach?
Well, we'll go on, we could go on and on.
We could go on and on.
Yeah,
And
we have.
I respect whatever this city does. And if the city chose not to pay $7 million for a pool, good, great. I mean, the city's saving $7 million. You know, I'd argue about some of the other things that the city is throwing money at. But again, it's what the city needs, how it's going to benefit the city, how it can benefit the city in the long run. And, you know, we're looking at a pool that lasted 50 years. Hopefully another renovation of this pool, it's going to last another 50 years. And so it's something that will definitely outlive the bonding. And, but I, as a swim coach, that really find that facility, that 50-meter pool, important to the program of competitive swimming. I'm willing to, you know, to help out as much as we can.
I think, Dave, I mean, when you bring up over a 50-year period, you know, this pool lasted over 50 years. And I look at it somewhat that way too, that over a long period of time, that if you had 1 or 2 meets, you could have a Special Olympics here that would draw from the entire upper Midwest. I mean, there's any number of things. And I just know that
some ideas out
Visitor and Convention Bureau mentioned that, you know, $400,000 is raised equipment, something like that. So, you know, the problem right now is that, you know, it's been delayed a number of times, and what happens is now the costs have gone up, and now we're at a point where we're discussing our bonding
I know.
capabilities.
I
And
know.
it's
It's
like,
very interesting.
and we can't really get a full answer on some of these things, so it's kind of a roll of the dice. So our heart might be in one spot, but our head's in a different spot. So it's a difficult thing, but I agree with you on many of the topics you brought up.
And again, I respect whatever this city decides to do too, so. I love this city and, you know, there's some roads that need to be fixed and different things too, so. We done?
Good. Thank you, Coach. Really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thanks for coming
Thanks, David.
tonight.
Thanks.
Any other comment, public comment?
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Motion second to
All in favor?
close the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So we're back to number 5. We've had various amendments made. Are there any other amendments that the committee would like to offer?
I just want
I would accept a recommendation.
motion to approve the amended,
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second to approve the request by Common Council and departments for the bonding request to be forwarded to the City Council with the amendments that were noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That's it. All right, item number 6 is our report by the Finance Director.
Just audit starts next Monday. That's probably it. That's it.
move to receive and place on file.
Second.
Motion second to receive and place on file the Finance Director's report. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
To adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Good job.
Golden.
Gillette?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thomas?